This is KBTV, Kodak Business Television. Live from the television studios of KBTV at Eastman Kodak Company's Marketing Education Center in Rochester, New York, this is the Techniques of the Masters teleconference series. Today we'll be featuring the work of Time magazine photographer Bill Pierce and environmental photographer Galen Rowell. And now, here's your teleconference host, Gwenn Kelly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second Techniques of the Masters teleconference. To our viewers in North America and Europe, we're glad you could join us today. And for those of you who were with us last December, welcome back. And thank you very much for your suggestions. Based on that input, we've made several changes in our format today to make your viewing more interesting and more valuable. First, this telecast will be exactly 2 hours long. Last show, we stayed on the air trying to answer as many questions as possible. But this time we're going to end at 2 hours to help our viewers who are taping this broadcast and those of you who have other things to do today. Second, we have divided the question and answer times into two 30-minute segments, and these will follow each of our master photographers' presentations so that you can question them about their work and experiences individually. And third, stand by, there will be no intermission break today. If you need to leave the room, you might want to do it during the question and answer segments. Now, before we look at the work of our master photographers, we have a special event. This year, on February 15th, Eastman Kodak Company's Professional Photography Division confirmed that it was trade testing a high-speed black and white film. Advance articles on this film have already appeared in the photo press, which many of you may have seen. You may have also read some newspaper clips from our April 5th press announcement. Well, today, on this teleconference and in conjunction with a press reception being held in New York City, Eastman Kodak Company is introducing this dramatic new film to the photo press. Ray DeMoulin, the Vice President and General Manager of the Professional Photography Division, is at that reception, but yesterday he joined us in our studios to help us present the story of this new product. Good morning, Ray DeMoulin, here on the Techniques of the Masters program.
Good morning, Gwen.
We are here, of course, talking about a new product in the Kodak line, a new film product. What's it called, and give us a description of it.
Sure. The new film product is called P3200. It's the latest in the line of TMAX films from the TMAX technology. It's a very fast film aimed specifically for the photojournalist market, but it will also serve in the photoeducators market, certainly scientific and investigative markets. So this is going to be a very versatile film, far superior in speed and sharpness and grain than most of the other films at this speed level.
We know our audience is quite interested in that. What speed will photographers rate this film at?
This film will be rated probably around 1600 to 3200. Capability, however, is many stops in excess of that using processing techniques.
You mentioned briefly the markets. Let's talk about that a little bit more, the real specific markets that the film is targeted at, and why, and specifically you mentioned photojournalists.
It's really targeted at the photojournalist market, and it's targeted to that market because many lighting situations, certainly late afternoon or early morning or night, prevent a handheld usage of a camera with a fast film, and there's no film today that will allow itself to be used in that arena without flash. This film, for the first time in the history of photography, allows handheld cameras at fast shutter speeds, 1/250th or 1/500th, and still with the ability to get good exposures in very, very poor lighting conditions.
So quite an advancement. What other users would there be for the film besides the photojournalist?
Well, the photojournalist, of course, comes to mind first, but in the scientific area, where low light levels exist in a number of situations, certainly in the security and investigative and surveillance areas, where lots of work is done at night with very low light level conditions where you need a very fast film, those are the ones that come to mind first.
How about, what about the photo hobbyists and some of the advanced amateurs? Are they going to want to experiment with this film?
All the photo hobbyists and advanced amateurs, and my guess is amateurs and all of us that play with film will want to take a look at this film. I've shot some myself experimentally. When the people in the laboratory told me how fast it was, I had a little disbelief, much as some of the photographers we talked about. And it's only until you use this film and experiment with it you find out what the capabilities really are.
Yeah, what would you say is the real speed of this film?
Oh, the real speed of this film is difficult to state because there's an ASA measurement of speed that's dedicated to precise measurements and given a precise set of developer formulas, and if you go through that, the speed of the film might be somewhere between 1,000 and 1,600. But in usage, the film is going to be many, many times that.
Especially when we start hearing the stories when it gets out there. Huh?
That's right.
A bit about the processing. What developers are recommended for this film?
I think up until you get to ASA exposures of in maybe 6,400, there are a variety of Kodak and other developers that will be all right for this film. Above 6,400, you have to use the TMAX developer and some specific requirements.
How does the TMAX P3200 compare to Tri-X film?
The 3200 film is much better grain structure, better latitude, better in low light conditions, certainly in shadow detail and highlights, and it's not as grainy.
How about some of the other advantages that photographers are going to notice once they really start experimenting with it?
Well, photographers will notice that it's versatile. This is the principal thing. It can be used under a variety of situations. I think that if of all of the characteristics, that might be the most important one. But they will also notice that under certain conditions where before they've had to push films that have turned grainy, they'll find that they get very, very fine grain structure and better pictures.
We know everybody's going to be anxious to get their hands on this film. Let's talk for a minute about how this new film is going to be made available to photographers.
Well, the film is made available in the format of 35 millimeter and 36 exposures as a start. And that film will be available in the marketplace very, very soon.
We know that today's program is going to generate that kind of interest too. Let's talk specifically about the process that you go through when you're working with new films, specifically the trade trials. We all hear a lot about the Kodak trade trials. What are they? How does it work?
Sure. What's a trade trial? This is a question that a lot of people ask. It's a question that many, many photographers, when they hear about it, want to be included in. We call a trade test, really, which is preliminary to a trade trial. A trade test is where we select a few people, give them some experimental film, certainly not even in the manufacturable format yet, and ask them to use it in their day-to-day situations to give us a good appreciation of what it will do in a real-life situation. We take their input. If modification of the film is required, we do that. If it's not, that's better for us. But then the trade test is just an indication. The trade trial is where we get to more people in real life situations and ask them to use it on assignment. And we'll pick up more people. Now, we select photographers based on their background, their skills, their performance as we see it. And we try to select a wide variety of photographers whose expertise is in different areas, so that we get the most input. The trade trial really is an effort to get input on the performance of that film in real life.
How long a period of time does a trade trial cover?
Well, a trade trial will cover from a month or two to perhaps most of a year, depending on how many characteristics of the product you want to change based on the input you get from these selected people.
And what's the process of staying in touch with the people who are using your films? How do you get their input as the process goes along?
We react with these people closely, and we ask them for daily input or weekly input. We sometimes travel with them, our field people, to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. We give them some indications of how we'd like to have it shot, and they'll tell us about situations that we haven't thought about. Mm-hmm. It requires very close interaction with the people in the field. for us to get the maximum out of any kind of a trade test or trade trial.
And further example of your commitment to making the best products out there. Why aren't these trade trials announced?
We don't announce a trade test or a trade trial because that's what leads to a film being manufacturable in with the features and characteristics that we believe the field needs. When the film is in its final format, that's when the announcement comes. We don't believe that a film ought to be announced or a trade trial ought to be announced because too many people are interested. We get sometimes premature disclosure of a piece of product that's not in its final manufacturable form, thus misleading the people who ultimately buy and use it. So we prefer not to do that.
So you look at it really as a laboratory experience.
Yes, it's a laboratory experience, but it's in the laboratory of life, and it's not something done in our laboratory under conditions that we might think about because we're not in the field of photojournalism or surveillance or where the film is used, and we probably would not cover it as well.
Well, we look forward to the rest of today's programs when we get a first-hand look at how professional photographers are using these new films. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Ray DeMoulin, and an exciting announcement. Now you have Kodak TMAX P3200 professional film to pack in your camera bag. But how will you use it? And what will it do for you? Let's turn to the first of our masters. During the trade trial phase of TMAX P3200, Kodak distributed over 20,000 rolls of film to more than 15 trade test sites in North America and Europe. One of these early users was Bill Pierce, a New York City-based photojournalist. Bill has been on the masthead of Time magazine for 12 years. During this time, he has received several awards, including the Olivier Ribot Memorial Reward for Best Photo Reporting from Abroad by the Overseas Press Club, and most recently, the 1988 Budapest Award from the World Press Association. Bill's photographs have also been exhibited worldwide in galleries, museums, and shows. His work is included in books such as War Torn, Children of War, and several of the Day in the Life series of books. During 1987, Bill devoted much of his time to photographing the homeless. Our KBTV crew caught up with Bill at his studio in New York City and asked him a few questions about photography and the new film.
I went to one of those high schools where you had to have extracurricular credits to graduate. I mean, you were either well-rounded or you failed. And the easiest thing to get into was the camera club. So I joined the camera club, I became the president of the camera club, and my entire life became warped, from that point on. It was a hobby, and then it became a profession. I had some mentors in photography that were absolutely amazing. I was incredibly lucky. When I was a little kid, there was an AP photographer named Wally Stein, who was a legend with the Associated Press. I mean, one of the old, hard-bitten pros. And he taught me the basics. I mean, he taught me development, he taught me enlarging, and all those kinds of things. I was certainly not going to be a photographer. Harold Corsini of the Pitt Photo Library offered me a job. I thought he was offering me a job as the janitor, literally. I mean, that was my assumption, the kid who would come in and clean up the lab. I didn't find out till later that he was actually offering me a job as a photographer. And my neighbor was a man named W. Eugene Smith. People would give their eye teeth to have worked under Gene. I had no choice. He was my neighbor. He needed a printer. Hey, kid. I mean, he didn't think I was good or anything. He just thought I was available. Make some proof prints for me. So Gene was certainly one of my mentors. And then finally, I would say the last influence is a man named Gilles Perez, who is on again, off again, the president of Magnum. And a co-worker, in the sense that Gilles and I have ended up in the same areas of the world photographing the same thing. He has, as far as I'm concerned, the most massive intellect in photography today. And what Gilles did was he explained to me what the hell I was doing. He said, you don't have to take pictures that answer questions. It's not that kind of world anymore. You can also, as a journalist, take pictures that ask questions, and you can deal with chaos. And I suddenly realized that's what I was doing. My best pictures were disorganized, bizarre, surreal, and very confusing, even to me. Disturbing, if you wish. But after all, I live in a confusing, bizarre, and very disturbing world. The first time I heard about SO675, which was the experimental or test film which eventually became TMAX P3200, I was up in the halls of Time magazine, and somebody said, "You've got to try this film." And they said that essentially Kodak had a film which they felt you should probably set your meter around 3200 for. And it was a pretty good-looking, rather conventional pictorial film when it was rated at that. It was not some weirdo surveillance film in which you threw quality out the window in order to, to make an image. What we're talking about is a film that provides full tonal information. We're talking about detailed shadows rather than empty black holes. We're talking about detailed light values rather than something that just washes out to a blocked up, opaque, no tone value in the final print. We're talking about conventional photography at higher film speeds. What you should compare P3200 with is not Tri-X at 1600 or 2400 or 3200, but Tri-X at 400. The most important thing to understand about this new film is that it is not a special purpose film. It is not a surveillance film. It has nothing to do with some of the special order recording pans or anything like that. It is a film that in many respects looks like conventionally rated Tri-X. Good shadow separation and a very forgiving set of highlights. A lot of flexibility over the ratings that you actually choose and the developing times you achieve to get them. It is grainier, and I would imagine it has less definition. But not to any degree is the increase in grain or anything comparable to either using the very high-speed recording pans or pushing any of the existing films. P3200 is a very, very weird film when you start to push it. I mean, it has a variety of meter settings that you can use it at. Some are pretty astronomical. And indeed, you are pushing the film. And there is a buildup in grain, and there is an increase in contrast. Now, I'm not a technician. I don't know what is happening. But I will tell you this, more than any other film that I have ever used, those shadows are actually coming up in value without the highlights blocking. I mean, yes, you can push this film. My understanding is even the film speeds that we're using with it now are by technical standards a slight and modest push. But it doesn't block up and it doesn't go empty. Anybody who has printed a Tri-X negative, and we're looking at this as a film for journalists, at least I am because I'm a journalist, has a lot of experience printing Tri-X. He is going to find that this film prints in a very, very similar manner. But when it comes to pushing, they're going to have much less problem, much less highlight block up, much less attempting to save an empty shadow. Yes, the film does push well, and it does print well. I have this wonderful job. I'm paid to go out and stare at things. We are going to go out tonight and look at some things that are absolutely brand new. 99.9% of them will be incredibly dull. Maybe 100% of them will be incredibly dull. But what we're going to do is keep our eyes open. That's all we're going to do. We're going to keep our eyes open, and if something happens, we're going to photograph it. One of the great pleasures is to take one of these easy, automatic, autofocus, quote, amateur cameras and go out and do available light. It's a magic thing that when you look through your viewfinder, you say to yourself, that's it. You simply look at the person and you say, I believe I should point my camera in this direction. I'm going to watch this person very, very carefully. I believe, yes, that's it. I'm going to press the button. I've pressed the button. The big controls are, what do you point the camera at? And when do you press the button? When you see a picture that's it, and you press the button, it's an incredible high. Incredible high. I mean, yes, emotionally, it's amazing. I'm very happy, and usually if two of them happen in the same day, I'm also exhausted. But it's only the beginning. Eventually, that moment has to become a final object. Let me show you a portrait taken of this film. I mean, you hardly think of this as a portrait film. But look. This is a diffused image. The only sharp thing in it is the grain pattern. Now, do you find the grain, any of you? Now, I know that you're watching it on television, so you can't see it like I can with my nose pinned to it. But do you see any objectionable grain? Trust me, you can't see it. But I'm telling you, there is no objectionable grain. As a matter of fact, as an effect, I would like to see more grain in this image. This is a 600 millimeter f5.6 lens. In other words, every journalist knows what that is. It's a 300-2.8 with a tele-extender. Okay, the man is in the dark shadow of a construction area, one beam of sunlight coming down on his back. This is 1600. I would presume that my shutter speed was probably around 2000, and I would presume that the lens was stopped down. I needed it. I'm a little tiny photographer. It's a great big lens. I need everything to help me with my focusing accuracy, and I'm shaking. I need that 2000. Let me show you some latitude. This was taken on automatic. Now, the windows the store windows in this picture have been burned down. By the way, notice that they could burn down. They were easy to burn down. They weren't totally blocked up. But more important, those bright, glaring windows obviously misled the meter. The camera was set at 1600 to give me a little more latitude in the automatic situation. Who knows what some zone system photographer would say this was exposed at. But I know darn well that that meter went into massive underexposure because it didn't know that I was interested in the cars or the man. It sees these windows and goes, I'm going to turn those into a neutral gray. And yet I have no problem whatsoever printing this negative. I've got latitude and tonality at an astronomical speed, and I'm using an automatic exposure camera. Let me show you something. Let me show you 5 digits. 12,500. Not 1,250. 12,500. Okay, that's 12,500. The wall behind the subject is a relatively dark maroon brick wall. The white shirt had to be burned down slightly. No more, by the way, than the original print exposure. No dodging whatsoever was done on the dark background except right along this line to enhance the separation between the darkest black and the one slightly above it. We're talking good shadow separation. Okay, now, if I was a newspaper, okay, maybe I would airbrush this. But if I was a magazine, I wouldn't airbrush it. I would get a good reproduced print from it. Is it contrastier than the original scene? Yes, it is. Is it the grainiest? of the P3200 frames that you've seen? Yes, it is. Is it unacceptable? Does it look special? Does it look like I used some kind of weird film and boiling developer? No. There is a problem with this film. It takes very dim light situations. And in terms of what we've seen before in pictures of these situations, makes them look like not very bad situations. You know, in other words, we're going to bring in pictures and show them to our editors with great pride. Look what I did. And they're going to go, doesn't look very special to me. No big deal here. That's the point. It isn't a big deal. It's a conventional picture-taking film that produces rather conventional-looking results, and you use the speed to make life easier or to work in an arena that was just beyond what you could do before. Because you must understand, this is, if it falls anywhere within the category that Kodak is describing, not only incredibly useful, but in terms of the world that I come from, because my original background was not color magazine news, but more conventional black and white photojournalism, it is going to revolutionize the world of the young newspaper photographer.
Yeah, but we've got you, Bill Pierce, right now, and welcome to our studios.
Good to be here.
Very pleased to have you here. You sound pretty excited about these new films.
Yeah,
We can't
very
wait.
excited.
Can't wait to see more of your work in the future. And now it's time for you, our audience, to get involved, we promise, because our phone lines are open. The numbers to call are being displayed on the screen right now for you to make those calls for our master here. We want to get to as many questions as possible, so we're going to set a few ground rules. Number one, please do be brief and ask only one question per phone call. You're welcome, of course, to call back if you have other questions. And do have that question ready when you call. The operator will also ask for your name and your affiliation, and then just stay on the line with us. Once you're in the queue, I'm going to be expecting you to be there when we call for you. When your turn comes, you'll be patched live into our studios to ask your question. So, while we wait for those first calls to come in, and we're anxious to hear your voices today, I'd like to introduce our second guest for this segment of the show, Dr. Dorsey Dickerson. Now, Dick joined Eastman Kodak's research laboratories in 1967. He has worked with microfilms, rapid access photographic papers, and silver halide emulsions for graphic arts. He's also done extensive research into the assessment of subjective reactions to picture quality. Currently, he's development manager of black and white products for the professional photography division, and this has given Dick responsibility for developing new black and white films, papers, and chemicals, as well as working with groups developing new equipment for use with black and white materials. Another expert. Welcome, Dick. Glad you're here. Now, the question that we're asking everybody on this broadcast today, and we want to get an answer from your technical perspective, how fast is this film? That seems to be the question.
In a word, blistering. Russell Hart, writing for American Photographer, made a very astute observation. He said, several photographers who are using this film at night sporting events were exposing it at film speeds. It sounded more like attendance figures at the event than film speeds. I think that was a point well made. Ray also made an important point earlier, that it's greeted with a great deal of skepticism by a photographer first time out, and there really is no substitute for some hands-on experience. A roll can be very convincing. Early on, Kevin Higley, who works for our local Gannett Rochester papers, Ted Kirk, who works for the Lincoln Journal-Star, joined our program as consultants to make sure we put together the right film. Ted and Kevin are both in New York this morning. When we began our trade tests in earnest, though, we asked Ted and Kevin, can you put together some images for us to share with the sites up front that'll kind of take away the skepticism a little bit? encourage people to be bold with the film. We have some of these on tape this morning to share with the viewers. What Kevin did, I think this was a stroke of genius. He says people are going to relate, many people, better to negatives than to print. So these are negatives. What Kevin's done here is to image the same thing on TMAX P3200 and on TMAX 400 exposed at 3200, optimally processed, put the negatives on a light table so that people can get a sense of what is there in the negative, how much more meat is there in the P3200.
Pretty striking difference.
Yes, this was 3200. You'll see distinct differences there, particularly in the dark jerseys, the spectators. There's a fair amount that, quite frankly, you're losing pushing a 400 speed film 3 stops. The next comparison, this is at 4,000. Quite honestly, the 400 speed film pushed to this point is approaching something of a salvage operation. It's usable, particularly if it's important news, but you have a lot more to work with the P3200, and as Bill mentioned, the highlights don't blow out on this. It does not become difficult to print. 6400, a step yet beyond. We've got good detail here with the P3200 as opposed to the player's arm is disappearing, the helmet's empty. It's just too far for a 400 speed film to reach. This last comparison, particularly interesting. This says a lot about the instincts of a photojournalist. These are made by 2 different photographers. Kevin was working on the left with the P3200. Reid Hoffman, who also works at our local paper, was covering the game for the paper. They made the same decision. This is the instant, this is the image. Perspective's a little different. But Reid was shooting at 3200 with Tri-X. Kevin a stop away from that with a 3200, and at that he's still got substantially more detail. The legs, arms, knee bandages, spectators, there's just a lot more to work with. Final comparison, this was Ted Kirk's. This was when Ted was in his how fast is this film mode. Comparison here is the same scene shot both at 3200 and 25,000. Looking at the prints here, not the negatives. Intent being to give the viewer some sense of what do you lose with these genuinely extreme speeds, and frankly there's not a great deal of loss there. Ted never really answered his question. He got up to 50,000 successfully. I don't think he ever had a totally unqualified success at 100,000, but he began to lose interest here in what is the ultimate speed. Wherever it is, it's fast enough.
Whatever it is, and as Bill Pierce says, I don't know, this is going to make our jobs look a little too easy, huh?
You betcha, you betcha.
All right. We are ready to welcome some of our viewers into this discussion today. We know you've got lots of questions for our master photographers. Our first caller is Aaron Hogan from Lansing Community College in Lansing, Michigan. Aaron, you're on the air with us. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Who's your question for?
Well, whoever can answer it, really.
All right.
What I'd like to know is when I'm using the new P3200 film, how do I determine the correct developing time using it at the various film speeds?
Okay. Good question.
Excellent first question. Very important point. There is an easy way to do this. We've listed a variety of speeds. People have used this at 400 up to 50,000. And to tune in, really customize process times for yourself, Aaron, I think what I would suggest, you pick a scene that's really easy to meter, unambiguous, and meter it at 400. Shoot 2 or 3 frames at this speed. Cover the lens, put down a blank, close down a stop, shoot 2 or 3 more at 800, blank, 1600, out to the end of the roll, some astronomical speed at that point. And pick a time. There are process times in the literature, but pick a time for yourself. Don't need to pay attention to the literature and process the roll. Put it out on a light table and decide for yourself which sequence in here is properly exposed. All you need to remember is where you started, 400, 8, 16, 32. That will give you a process time for an exposure. Do it again, use a different process time, much longer, much shorter. Do the same thing, put it on the light table, make your judgment, and gradually, with additional rolls, fill in the gaps. And I think half a brick of film and half a day of your time, you will have excellent process times for your equipment, your developer, temperature, agitation. Best way to do it, and relatively painless.
Advocating a little experimentation with these new films. Good. Thanks for your call, Aaron. Let's go to North Carolina. Welcome Thomas Cox from the University of North Carolina to the network. Welcome, Thomas. Who's your question for today?
For the gentleman from Kodak.
Okay.
Any plans to bring the film out in 120 format if the demand is there?
A lot of possibilities have been suggested there, Thomas. Our ambition was to get out the 36 exposure 35 millimeter for a start. That's going to be the most used format, and we thought we'd do that. Then we address any specific problems, concerns there may be around other formats, 120, sheet, bulk. No decisions at this point, but I think we are at the point now that we can begin to address those questions.
Great, thank you. Let's go overseas. Welcome a caller from Plymouth and Devon, England, Roy Sims. Roy, welcome.
Hello. Hello?
You're on.
Can I speak? Can I speak to the Kodak?
Certainly.
Chap? Well, our question is that being in the UK, is it possible for us to expect the film to be available to us here fairly soon?
Fair question. I tell you what I'm going to do, Roy. I'm going to turn this over to Paul Curtis, who is here representing our marketing organization, can fill you in on details as to availability and such worldwide. Paul?
Good morning, Roy. The availability over in Europe is going to take place shortly after the U.S. availability. Ray, in his opening comments, said it was going to be soon. In the U.S., May 16th is the date that we're going to be sending product to customers. And only a few weeks after that, we will be shipping product to Europe. So about end of May, beginning of June, you'll have product.
That's fine. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your call, Roy. And you heard it here first, right from Paul Curtis. Okay, let's go to home base here. Rochester, New York, RIT, and a viewer, Gunther Cartwright. You're on the air with us, Gunther. Thanks for calling. Who's your question for?
Yes, good morning. Question for Mr. Dickerson. I was wondering, we didn't hear the first question very well, so I was wondering about the developer of choice for this product. Will it be a TMAX developer, and or will D76 be useful as well?
No hard and fast rules there, Gunther. On our trade test, which was a lot of sites worldwide, we frankly encountered some developers that I had not heard of before. People worked with these, they worked, they were satisfied with them, so it's not particularly sensitive. I would suggest, though, that during the course of developing this film, over time, all of our testing was with respect to D76 and TMAX developers. So I think we are getting everything the film has to offer with those developers. Others seem to work, but I would encourage you to explore those two particularly. There's information available for both those, HC110, Versamat, Duraflow processing. TMAX D76 are good starting points if you have no strong preference to the contrary.
Great. Thanks for your call, Gunther. Let's go to Central Washington University and say hello to Steve Douglas. Steve, thanks for being with us. You're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering if there is a publication for the P3200 similar to the F25 publication for the slower speed TMAX films. This would probably be for Dick.
All right.
The answer is yes. I think the information on how to obtain this will be available during the course of the program here. F25 is no more. It is now F32, and this contains information on the 100, 400, 3200 speed films, the TMAX developer. I think everything, both technical and practical, that you might want is in here. F32 is the new number.
Great, and those publications, again, a good resource for people interested in these new films. We encourage you to send for them. We'll be giving you addresses. Okay, to Williams College of Technology in New Jersey, Kevin Glover is with us. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is, will there be any effect by using the new P3200 film in a conventional D76 rather than TMAX? Basically, will there be any loss of quality?
No, I think the D76 recommendations extend up to 6400. Beyond that, the instructions are strictly TMAX developer in part because you're getting some rather long process times if you stay with D76. I don't know, Bill, have you had experience here you could contrast the two?
Yes, I think that the big difference that you're going to find is simply in grain structure, but you're only going to find that in very large prints. I wanted to see if it would work with D76 because it was such a universal standard. And indeed, it worked perfectly. I had no buildup of fog. And up to 3200, I really didn't get any significant speed loss or anything. Beyond that, you're going to want to use the TMAX. Now, if you like that very sharp, defined grain, you might want to use the TMAX over the full range of exposure indices, because the TMAX can also be used for the slower exposure indexes, and it'll give you a touch crisper grain. Your choice. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Great. Thanks for calling, Kevin. Okay, on to Union County College, New Jersey, and James Imont. James, you're on the air with us.
Yes, hello. This is for Bill. We're wondering if we wouldn't be processing the films ourselves, what would be the lowest ASA we could set it at? I guess it would be for Bill.
Okay, the lowest ASA that you could set it at. I have not set it this low, but I understand some people have used this film as low as 400, an exposure index of 400. And I understand that Kodak is circulating a picture in which you see a bright shaft of sunlight striking a preacher in a darkened church, and there is still full detail in the shadowed pews. I've used it as at 800 as a contrast cutter, something that would be good for, say, spotlit stage photography, and I understand that you can also use it at 400. I don't know if anybody has taken it lower than that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for calling. Now to North Georgia Tech Institute and William Martin. William, you're on the air with us.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Enjoying your show tremendously.
Good.
I have a question for one of the Kodak representatives there. My basic question is, on this new P3200 black and white, when it's available, I understand it will be available in the formats such as Tri-X and TMAX are already available in. What date can we expect it? I'm down here in a small town in Georgia, and we're wondering, are we going to have to come out of New York to get this film first when it's available, or will it be available in major cities such as Atlanta?
Okay, we're going to get Paul Curtis on the air, the marketing specialist, to answer this question for you, William.
Good morning, William. On May 16th, this product is going to be shipped to all our dealers, our customers, nationwide. So it's going to be available in major cities and in small towns around the country.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I hope that answers your question. Is there anything else?
Okay, this is a professional product film, so will this be available through stock houses and professional?
Yes.
Okay, not
yes. Any place that you're currently buying your black and white film, it will be available.
Okay, that answers my question completely.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks a lot. All right, on to White Sands, New Mexico, and Dave Husky, NASA Lockheed. Welcome. You're on the air.
Good morning. My question is this. Will this new emulsion be put on 16mm film stock for high-speed instrumentation purposes?
David, I think we commented earlier, our first time out of the blocks here, we're going to be looking at 35mm 36 exposure only. Beyond that, there's a lot of formats that have been suggested, are appropriate for consideration, but we're not at the stage of committing to any of those at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for your question. All right, let's go to Dave Richardson, Virginia Highland Community College. Dave, thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is, for Bill, I guess, have you used TMAX 3200 using flash and existing light combination, and if so, what are the effects on the shadow and highlight details?
Let me see. What was it? Was it Mark Twain that said, "I'm glad to answer your question"? The answer is, I don't know. No, I have never used flash with P3200 to alter the light. I have used reflectors to change the nature of the light. But the fact is that the one time, for instance, that I was considering using it with a flash, I was doing a portrait. and I found out I was getting a perfectly reasonable exposure by just using the modeling light for the electronic flash. The film is of excellent quality, even at these ratings. That's the point. And it will diminish the use of flash. Certainly you could use it to control and characterize the light, but I would also suggest that you just leave your flash at home and use a small reflector at times. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave. All right, on to Atlanta and John Pemberton at Morris News Service. John, welcome. You're on the air.
Hello, I have a question for Bill Pierce.
Great.
My question is, in the literature it talks about above 75 degrees need for refrigeration, and if you shoot it at above 3200 into the ranges you're talking about, 25,000 and such, what about going through airports, handling it in the desert conditions and that sort?
Okay, now, much of this I have not done, and so what I'm really telling you is what other field testers have told me and what some of the technical people at Kodak have told me. I've had no problems going through airports with it. I've not been working in the desert recently, so I can't tell you about that. But oddly enough, in spite of the incredible speed of this film, it doesn't really seem to have any more problems than the standard high-speed films that we have with things like X-rays or something. I don't know how this miracle has been accomplished, and I would suggest that Dick is probably more knowledgeable in that area than I am.
Okay, there is a caveat here. The only concern that has really surfaced is with respect to environmental ambient radiation, cosmic rays, natural radioactivity in bricks and stones and buildings. That has limited us to 12-month dating on the product. You will, with time, with just the natural radiation, which the film does see, you will pick up graininess, fog at very low densities on the film. That's a concern, but yeah, quite honestly, X-rays, surprisingly, somewhat, have presented no problems to date. I wouldn't encourage you to abuse that, but nothing has surfaced there that's been a concern.
Thanks, John. All right, back to England, and we're going to welcome Abby Amuso. I hope I got that right. Plymouth College of Arts in London.
No, that's wrong. We're in Devon. We're in Plymouth itself. But anyway, hello. My question is to Bill Pierce, and what I'd like to know is how the film actually reacts to dark-toned individuals like black skin.
Absolutely no problem. Certainly, most conventional films do not have a problem. An incident meter will give you faithful reproduction and easy printing negatives. If you're doing a reflected light metering at a given stop, you might want to say open up a stop to produce a zone 6 if you're of the Ansel Adams school for a white or a Caucasian. You might want to just let it ride. But it is a full-toned film, and we don't think of it this way. It's an excellent, excellent portrait film. No problems. If you've been using Tri-X or you've been using T400, you're essentially going to get the same results, just with a much higher speed when you use this new film. Now, I have a question for you. How's the weather in Devon? Great.
Dull, pretty dull.
Thanks for your call. All right, from London to Asbury College in Wilmore, Kentucky, and Tom Holden. Tom, you're on the air with us. Thanks. Tom Holden, Wilmore, Kentucky, Asbury College. Tom?
Yes, Bill. I just wanted to know, do you think Time Magazine will switch totally over to this new film?
Don't I wish that they would switch over totally to this new film, but unfortunately, as the colorful news weekly, I think that they'll be using a lot more color than this film. However, I will say that this film is going to have an incredible influence on magazine journalism, and I don't want to give away any of their secrets at this time, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a little more black and white in the colorful news weeklies because of this film. Does that answer the question? I'm bound by journalistic secrecy not to blab too much.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks for calling, Tom. All right, let's go now to Jay Green at Harrisburg Community College. Jay, welcome. You're on the air.
Good morning. Yes, my question is for the Kodak representative. I'm really interested in this P3200 film, and my question is, when it's released on May 16th, will they also be releasing it in bulk film form, in the 100-foot rolls like the 400 is and the 32?
No, Jay, that's again one of these options once we get beyond the 36 exposure rolls. Bulk, long rolls, 120, who knows what we may get into there. Our initial impetus, though, is just to get the 36 exposure rolls available. You'll have a lot of fun with these for a while, and we will get to the other formats, other options later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for calling, Jay. All right, on to the Kodak Marketing Center in Atlanta, and Matt Vondersmith. Thanks for calling, Matt. You're on the air.
Hi, I'm a student out at Gwinnett Tech, and we've noticed a problem with the TMAX 100 and 400, and you need a little bit of a longer fixing time and a longer wash time to remove that purple dye in it. And I was wondering if the new TMAX P3200 was going to have a problem in that area too.
What do you say?
Fair question. Fair question, yeah. The speed grain advantage we have with the TMAX films is not quite a free lunch. It's the grain morphology, really the T-grain morphology, that allows us to get the additional sensitizing dye into the emulsion that buys us the speed without a grain penalty. The other side of the coin is it takes longer to get it out in the tail end of the process. With respect to 3200, I think you're going to see less tendency in that direction than you have with 400, which in turn is less than 100. There's a connection here with film speed, that the greater the intrinsic speed, the less of a concern this seems to be. It'll be there to some degree. I would caution you and the other viewers, though, don't strive, work to get all of the pink out. A little bit left really isn't going to cause you any problems. Does that answer the question?
Yes, so a hypo-clearing agent would usually take care of most of that.
Sure.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, Michael Young from Union County College. It's your turn. You're on the air.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, a simple question, how much would the film be? And also, Bill Pierce, I think you're terrific.
Well, I don't know how to answer that. That's very, very kind of you. I think that the other question, the important statement, can be answered by Paul.
We'll turn it over to Marketing Specialist Paul Curtis on that question, Michael.
Okay. Good morning, Michael. We think Bill is terrific also here. The question on the price, obviously the dealers are going to be charging price. We set a net price for the dealer, and then it's up to them. We have a suggested list price, but I don't know too many companies, stock houses, that sell it at list price. It is going to be a premium price on it. Now, an average, it may be over the TMAX 400, maybe about 20% you can figure on, depending on the dealer, also on the amount of product that you might be purchasing from that dealer. You have to take into account this is the latest and highest technology in the world. No company has a film this fast, and what you're getting is the world's fastest film. Therefore, there is going to be a premium price.
Thanks for your question, Michael. Now, on to Stan Niss in Cleveland, Ohio. Stan, welcome. You're on the air with us.
Thank you. I have a two-part question, probably one for Dorsey Dickerson and one for Bill Pierce. For Dorsey, we may have a question about the latent image keeping of the P3200. It is my understanding that it should be processed as soon as possible after exposure. And for Bill, I'd like to know if he followed the processing recommendations in the F32 publication for his test.
Okay, Stan, your second question is going to be interesting. There's a story there. First question regarding how soon do you process after you expose. That's not an expression of concern around latent image keeping. We have no particular concerns there. That again is reference to this tendency of the film to accumulate cosmic radiation, terrestrial radiation. Once the film's exposed, there's really no benefit in allowing that to happen. So we do encourage you to process as quickly as you can after exposure, but not related to latent image concerns. Bill?
When I test a film, I purposely don't have any technical data whatsoever because I want the answers to be as honest as they can be. And so I, for different ratings, worked out personalized developing times for myself with D76 and with TMAX. They essentially exactly paralleled the Kodak recommended times. I agitate at 1 minute intervals, and the times that you will see in the F32, is it, Dick? The F32 publication are a little shorter because that is set for agitation at 30-second intervals. I checked out the Kodak times, same beautiful negative and everything. The interesting thing about this film is that as you move from condenser to cold light, there is, for those technicians in the audience, very little Callier effect, and you can come up with a common developing time. You're really not going to have to adjust your developing times for different enlargers. But I would say yes, the Kodak recommendations are an excellent starting point, but of course, as always, customize your own times. Does that answer your question?
Yes, both questions were answered very adequately, and we thank you for your response.
We thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, if you're in the line currently to ask a question, please stay there, but we have closed our phones for this portion of our program. So if you're in line, stay there. We're going to try to get to you. Joe Kirkish, you're next, Michigan Technical University.
Yes, this is very exciting. It opens up all kinds of new ideas.
Good.
But I'm wondering if you're going to give us anything in color that is comparable to this.
Joe, even my business card is in black and white. I can't comment on color, frankly, except to note that, like us, in black and white, yeah, they are striving to provide materials that will be useful to people. Other than that, I wouldn't be able to offer you information. Paul, comments? No. Can't really comment on that. Our world is black and white, and I do genuinely, honestly appreciate your enthusiasm for this film. It's something you can have a lot of fun with.
Great.
I think we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And we're going to Mike Price from Fort Washington, Pennsylvania next. Mike, thanks for being with us. You're on the air.
Thanks. Hi, Bill. I would like to know if anyone has tested this film under studio conditions, either portraiture or commercial work.
Okay, Michael. I think it's a wonderful portrait film with a beautiful long scale down at about 1600. And indeed, I have done some portraiture with it under relatively contrasty conditions. It's given me a wonderful skin tone, good highlight break. One of the pictures behind me, as a matter of fact, is a portrait. You might be able to remember it from the wide shots. With D76, though, the problem is this. I wanted to use the grain pattern as sort of an interesting texture, sort of an effect. I couldn't make it grainy enough. I'm currently experimenting boiling the film in non-Kodak developers so I can make it a little grainier, because I thought that would be interesting for portraits. But yes, you go right into the studio, you just use the modeling lights on your electronic flash, and that's it. You never have to turn on your flash.
And as far as commercial work for reproduction, tabletops, still life.
Okay, I think that there are probably products that are more appropriate than the highest speed film in the world, you know, for product photography. But in general, the tonal range that you will get from this film is open in the shadows, fully detailed in the highlights, and there should be no reproduction problems whatsoever with the prints that you get from these negatives.
Great. Thanks for calling, Mike. We're going on now to our last caller for this segment, our 20th call of this program today, John Puffer from Emporia State University in Kansas. John, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I have a question about the new TMAX film in an educational situation. We've had not serious problems, but some problems with accidental overdevelopment and that exhibiting in the TMAX 100 and 400 films an awful lot of contrast increase. Is that going to be a problem with the new TMAX film? And I'll address that to anyone who wants to answer that.
Take a cut at that, John. Again, first-hand experience here, there's not going to be any substitute for it, but in general, no, I don't think you're going to have a concern there. We had broadly 3 goals in mind when we set out to design this film. 1, we wanted it to be fast, very fast. 2, we wanted it to push very gracefully. And 3, because of the kind of circumstances where it would be most useful, we wanted it to be a film that you could beat up on, abuse, kick around, and still come back with prints that made you look like a champ. And what we've heard from our trade test people says, yes, we succeeded at this. So it is not a terribly touchy thing. You will see touchiness again when you get up into some of these extreme 5-digit speeds, but in the 32-6400 range, where probably, I think of the nearly 30,000 rolls at this point that have been used, 95% of them, 90% certainly have been 32-6400 and very forgiving, no particular problems.
Great. Thanks for your call, John. And as we wrap up this segment of our program, we want to thank Bill Pierce from Time Magazine very much for being with us. We know
Thank you.
Viewers have been quite interested in what you have to say. We're really looking forward to seeing more of your work. And Dr. Dickerson from Kodak. We promise you experts on techniques of the masters, and it's been our pleasure to present them. Thanks for being with us. Okay, now, we certainly appreciate everyone's contributions to helping us understand all these new films better. And we're going to shift to something that's going to be of interest to users of color films right now. Last February at the Olympic Games in Calgary, Canada, Eastman Kodak introduced another new film, Kodak Ektachrome 100 Plus professional film. As we begin to discuss the 100 Plus film, I'd like to stress a few points. First, that Ektachrome 100 Plus is the newest member to the line of Ektachrome professional films. Second, that Ektachrome 100 Plus does not replace any other Kodak film. 100 Plus is an addition to the line of Ektachrome films. And this leads to the final point, that while Ektachrome 100 professional film is noted for its accurate color reproduction, the primary feature of the 100 Plus film is its ability to produce images with increased color saturation compared to those created on Ektachrome 100 professional film. As you can see, these are 2 different films to be used in achieving different visual effects. And to help us look at how to work with this new film, we're going to turn to nature photographer Galen Rowell. Galen is a California native who was introduced to the wilderness at quite an early age on Sierra Club outings. And less than a year after becoming a full-time photographer in 1972, he did his first major magazine assignment, and that was a cover story for National Geographic. Galen's special brand of participatory landscape photography has brought him recognition for his action photographs of mountain climbing and his evocative landscape work, which in 1984 earned him the Ansel Adams Award for his contributions to the art of wilderness photography. In addition to numerous articles, assignments, and journeys, he has produced 7 books, including In the Throne Room of the Mountain Gods and Mountain Light. Galen, of course, is also a teacher. A few weeks ago, we found him conducting a photographer's holiday weekend for the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite Valley, California. And here's what Galen had to say about photography and the Ektachrome 100 Plus professional film.
This is what started me in photography. Scenes like this and experiences like this. I first climbed El Capitan 22 years ago, and I took a little Kodak Instamatic. And 98% of the photos that I took during that time didn't look quite as good as what I saw. But 2% had something that looked better. And it was that 2% that lured me into photography. I wanted to find out why film sometimes saw things so much more beautifully than my eye. And I've spent the last 25 years trying to figure that out. Lots of people think that I have just an easy job of doing what I love to do, walking around, taking my camera out in the wilds and making photographs of what I see. But it's not always that easy. I specialize in being a participant rather than an observer. The projects I do are usually self-initiated. I think them out, and they're there because they're part of my passion. And then I try and photograph them with the camera as part of my eye and mind, as part of my experience. And that's why I stick to 35mm cameras and always try to have a camera right by my side whenever I need it. Using 35mm equipment where I can carry it and it doesn't interfere with my primary experience makes what I do possible. In Ansel Adams' day, he had to take large cameras around and worked with very slow films, and he wasn't able to capture the immediacy of a run or a rock climb or the kind of things that I photograph today. And so he had different goals in his photography. Sometimes my goals are similar. I see a scene and I want to capture it. Then I do the best that I can with 35. And what I like to do is never to get too casual with a 35. If I see something and I say, boy, I wish I had an 8x10 camera, then this little 35 gets real heavy all of a sudden, and I lift it up because it's big and heavy and cumbersome, and I put it on a tripod and I pretend it's a big camera. And then I set the f-stops just right, my composition is real careful, and in every way I go through the same exercises I would with a big camera, and that way I get a really fine scenic that looks like the kind of photograph you'd take with a large camera, except for the grain size. There are lots of things that I look for in nature, and I think that unexpected convergences of light and form are really my favorite. And if I can make a photograph that has two different colors of light, and those colors of light interplay with differences in form, then to me, that's about the most creative use of color and form in outdoor photography. And to do those, I think backwards. I don't walk out and see something and say, hey, that's great, I want to take a picture of it. I see the light, and I see where the boundary of the light is, where the red light of sunset intersects the blue light in the shadows. And I think, okay, where can I go to make that intersection part of my composition with a landform? And that may lead me up on a cliffside, across a river, to some different place. It may not be possible. I may come back the next day, imagining what the light's going to be at a certain time. And it's a real treasure hunt to put together light and form into a landscape image. Yosemite has had a huge influence on me because I first came here when I was 3 years old with my parents during World War II, and it was paradise. I've always wanted to represent the beauty that I found here that was ingrained in me when I was a little kid, in words and in images. And I've been around the world. I've photographed in the Himalayas, in Patagonia, in all kinds of wild places, and I haven't found anything quite like Yosemite anywhere on the face of the earth. My favorite locations in Yosemite are all very dependent upon light. And at dawn, I'd come down to this area and photograph El Capitan behind us, or the Cathedral Rocks on this side, preferably over the Merced River with reflections. Then I'd drive up to Lower Yosemite Falls, walk in about 5 minutes, and the angle of light early in the morning is just right to put a rainbow at the base of the falls, as if it's hanging in the forest, in the rocks and trees. And that's a wonderful sight and the most predictable rainbow that I know anywhere in the world. Then during the midday, I basically wouldn't take any landscape photographs. The light's too flat here. In the afternoon, I'd once again drive out again into the far corner of the valley to a place called Valley View and take an overview of the valley, first from the valley floor and then from a parking lot at the base of the Wawona Tunnel, where there's a very famous overview that Ansel Adams has photographed in every season. And yet it sparks me each time I go there because it's never the same. The clouds and the light have infinite variability. Then right at sunset, I'd go to the bridge in Yosemite Village where Half Dome is reflected perfectly in the Merced River. I make my decisions about film really by compromise. I would like to use the slowest possible film so that I have the sharpest results, and that would be Kodachrome 25, except that in some situations there's no way that I can stop motion or handhold a shot in low light with that type of film. And when I can't, then Ektachrome 100 Plus is a really good choice because it has the high saturation that people have come to expect from Kodachrome films. In fact, it even has more saturation, and it doesn't lose that much sharpness. Most of the time, an image that I would shoot on the 100 in a handheld situation might actually be sharper than the Kodachrome image in the same situation because I'd be able to shoot it at a higher shutter speed. When I first tested the Ektachrome 100 Plus, I was amazed. The color saturation was beyond what I expected, and yet the colors were very clean and very neutral. The whites were the cleanest I'd ever seen on a color slide film, and the flesh tones seemed to me just perfect. For me, the most important benefit of using the Ektachrome 100 Plus is the very clean separation of tones and high saturation. And in the kind of work that I'm doing, that's really important. In the past, I've lost so many images that were there in my mind, but not there in film, because the film didn't quite get the cleanness of tones and the full tonal range that I saw in my mind's eye. This shot of Yosemite Valley in winter holds high saturation on the face of El Capitan and in the blue sky, and yet absolutely clean whites with nice detail in the snow. For wildlife photography, I couldn't do better than this close shot of a coyote. And even though there was some direct sun coming in from the back and the lighting contrast was harsh, all the values are there and the image really works. Whereas on a more contrasty, faster film, I couldn't have possibly made this image. But one of my real favorites is a fern and an orchid in the forests of Nepal, made on an expedition in November 1987. And the high saturation here, the intense greens and the contrast with the beautiful warm colors in the orchid just carries off the image in a way that any other film that I've used has never been able to produce for me. Then the close-up portrait of a Hindu man really works, and I was just really blown away when I was going through my film and this frame jumped out at me because I'd made one frame handheld of this man's face, and he had dark skin and a very light beard, and I didn't think that I could hold those two values. So I didn't spend a lot of time making the photograph. I thought, I'm going to be able to record this man who I'm having a conversation with and who's going to allow me to take his photograph, but it's not going to come out that well because in my mind the contrasts were too great, the dark skin and the white beard. But here they are, held wonderfully on the Ektachrome 100 Plus. The most important thing to learn in photography is how film sees, because film sees very differently than your eye. And if you are constantly looking at scenes and photographing them and hoping that they'll come out well on film, you're never going to get the same kind of results as if you learn to see like film. And in that foreign language that film sees, then in your mind's eye, you'll see the final result that you have before you take the picture.
Well, when he's not doing assignments for the National Geographic, Outdoor Photographer, or other publications, Galen is likely to be found either writing at his home in Berkeley, climbing in the High Sierra, or working with his images at Mountain Light Photography, his photo agency. But today, Galen Rowell is in our studios, and we're very happy about that. Welcome.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to hearing more about your work and getting those questions from all around the country for you, Galen. We know our viewers are looking forward to that too. We're going to be taking calls for Galen in about 5 minutes, so you can start making those calls right now. We're going to get the numbers up on the screen for you. In the USA, 800-262-3144. Our Canadian location, 716-724-0100. Our European locations can call London and then 427-2999. All right. Also with us today is Kodak product specialist Karen Teitelbaum. Karen's background includes quality control and development work in the formulation and coating of new products. Presently, her job is with marketing technical support, where she is a product specialist for Ektachrome daylight and Kodachrome films. Throughout the development, testing, and introduction of Ektachrome 100 Plus, Karen has been a primary link in the trade trial communication process. Welcome, Karen. Glad you could join us. You were a connecting link there in the trade trial. So basically what we're saying here today is color photographers have yet another choice to make.
Yes, we have a broad range of film speeds. You know, we go from 25 in Kodachrome up to P800, 1600 in Ektachrome. But a 100 speed film is something that's very applicable, very useful to a range of applications. Commercial photography, advertising, nature photography with Galen. In the trade test, we were able to see such a difference in the way people were testing the film and the kinds of images. Some of them were so beautiful. And I loved your images of Nepal.
Thank you.
You know, what a trip that was. What I would like Galen to do is to briefly describe how he would use the Ektachrome 100 versus the Ektachrome 100 Plus in his sort of work.
Yeah, the decision-making process.
The decision-making.
Well, the Ektachrome 100 film is wonderful for color accuracy in a studio or when you're close to things. And if you need to reproduce colors of clothing exactly, and you're very close to your subject, it does wonders. But when you're farther away and the light's not good, the way it is in the outdoors, and there's a distance and there's an atmosphere and things like that, then your eye perceives brighter, more vivid colors than your film will record, and then you need more saturation. So for almost all outdoor shots, I prefer what I get on the Ektachrome 100 Plus to what I get on standard Ektachrome 100.
Yes, that's the way we feel too. We just want to reemphasize the points that you made, Gwen, concerning Ektachrome 100 and Ektachrome 100 Plus. There is no discontinuance of Ektachrome 100. There is a need for that product in the market. If a commercial photographer is taking a picture of a product on a shelf, that's the way it should look to the customer. However, we know that in some cases, some clients, some situations, some exposure conditions, such as what Galen is using, there is a need for that extra amount of saturation. And that's why we now have a different film.
And we're happy to make that announcement today and have Galen here with us to talk to us about it. Our calls are starting to come in from our viewers. That makes us happy. We're happy to welcome our first caller, Steve Freeman at RIT here at home base in Rochester. Steve, thanks for being with us. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to ask Galen about the comparisons or pros and cons of using the Kodachrome 200 versus the Ektachrome Plus in terms of stability, long keeping, and just the spectral response.
Well, in terms of long keeping, I haven't had enough experience to really see any difference. Both of them seem to do just fine taking them in the field and just being a little bit careful with temperature and bringing them back in a month or two and processing. As far as the differences, The Kodachrome 200 seems to have more contrast and works well in low light situations where the extra contrast snaps up your image. And the Ektachrome 100 Plus works especially well in bright daylight situations where its high saturation and lower contrast gives you a very full tonal range. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for calling, Steve. Okay, let's go to Wigan, England, in the College of Technology, and Doug Marcus. You are on the air, Doug.
Hello. I would like to ask the photographer a question about how he copes with color temperature whilst he's working out in the field.
Well, basically, I don't have to cope with it much because the Ektachrome 100 Plus is so neutral and the whites are so clean and the flesh tones are so clean that if I have decent light to work with, or I'm working with a small strobe and softbox, the film does it for me.
Doug, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for calling. All right, we are going now to Richard Godfrey at Durham Technical Community College. Richard, you're with us.
Thank you. We're presently using quite a bit of 200, and we're interested in knowing how the 100 holds up in the situations of over and under exposure. Does the film have a pretty good exposure latitude, and do highlights and shadow details hold up in situations where you have intentionally or unintentionally over and underexposed the film?
I think Galen and I both will probably respond to that. We feel that the Ektachrome 100 Plus film has very good latitude, similar to our other Ektachrome low, medium speed range products. When you get up to Ektachrome 200 that you're using now, you can have a little problem with underexposure and overexposure. I'd like to divert to Galen for questions on latitude in your testing.
In my experience, it's very similar to both Kodachrome 25 and Kodachrome 64 in latitude, that in high contrast lighting situations, you'll get just about what you would expect to get with either of the Kodachromes.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for the call, Richard. On to Rick Povich, the University of Pittsburgh. Rick, welcome. You're on the air.
Thank you. I have a question for Galen. I was wondering if he uses any special metering techniques for some of his high altitude winter photography. And I was also wondering if he had any problems with film emulsions in some of his cold weather extremes.
Well, the answer to the first question is that at high altitude, where there's snow and sand and very dark skies, I usually pay special attention to taking a meter reading, usually with a through-the-lens meter, because I won't carry a handheld meter in the field where I'm the one that has to carry it at high altitudes. And I'll meter only off of the important highlight that I want to preserve in the image. So if it's a person in the snow, then I don't want the snow. That's not my important highlight. I want a flesh tone. I'll walk up to their face, take a meter reading off their face, or I'll put my hand against the dark sky, do a reading off the back of my hand. If I want a reading off of rock and it's dark rock, I'll do the same thing. But I just always think important highlight, meter for it, set the camera on manual, and shoot. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that did.
Great. Thank you. And now on to John Dowling from Lemoyne College in Syracuse. John, thanks for being with us. You're on the air.
Hi, I'd like to ask how Ektachrome 100 Plus reacts to push processing, one stop or two stops.
Okay, John?
Yes, we've had quite a few people who want to push the film. I get questions about this all the time. You might not have to push if you're looking to clean up the toe of the film. However, if you want to underexpose and push it a stop or two, the film color balance is going to push a little in the magenta, pink, red direction. However, I think you'll still see that you're going to get a good DMAX out of the film. It pushes pretty well.
I've been very happy with the way that the Ektachrome 100 Plus pushes, because the situations where I want to push the film are those where the light is kind of bluish or greenish and very soft light, And the increased contrast and the increased warmness are exactly what I want. And especially shooting aerials where the light might not be perfect, it looks better pushed than unpushed. So I'm very pleased that the push isn't exactly accurate and that the things that happen do happen.
So what, advice to John is to give it a try, huh?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to our next caller now, Wayne Feemster from Burlington Community College in North Carolina. Wayne, you're on the air. Who's your question for?
Galen, excuse me. Yes, I was wondering about his use of the tripod with the Ektachrome 100 Plus. I've used 64, and I was just out in Death Valley and was shooting some stuff with 64. And I know in the low light conditions, I had to use the tripod. I was wondering how he went to the field. I just heard him say he didn't use a handheld meter, and I was wondering about his use of the tripod then.
Well, basically, I do things in whatever way I can afford to do them. If I have an assistant or I'm going on a foreign expedition, then I'll have a couple of tripods and one that weighs 6 pounds and one that I can carry with me where I really need to that weighs just 1.75 pounds, a very small little Gitzel. And with that, if I'm doing serious photography and carrying everything on my back, I can take night photographs and take 15-minute exposures if I need to, and things work fine. When I'm going really light, if I'm climbing or skiing and I'm just out for the day and I really can't afford the weight of even that 1.75 pounds tripod, and I have my camera in a little chest pouch here and maybe one extra lens and a couple filters and a couple extra rolls of film, and that's it, then I try to figure out how can I steady my camera? What can I do? And there are a whole lot of ways to do that, very creative ways. People think about taking bean bags, and everyone probably has done something like that and has one at home, but taking off your jacket will work like a bean bag. You can just take it off, put it down on something in the foreground, put your camera down, and put pressure on your camera with one hand, look through the viewfinder, and that pressure is holding the camera into your jacket, and the pressure of the fabric is holding it up, and you can hand hold a half-second exposure that way. And so in lots of situations you can make do without a tripod. And so I try both situations. Sometimes I have one. If I don't, then I prop little rocks and pebbles under the lens to take long exposures.
You get creative, huh?
And it's fun. It's like baling wire to a mechanic, thinking of what you can do to avoid having to carry a tripod all the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling, Wayne. Let's go now to Jeff Crow, Central Washington University. Jeff, you're with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I have a question for Galen. What situation would you use the Ektachrome Plus over Kodachrome 25 or 64?
Well, basically, I would use Kodachrome 25 or 64 where I need ultimate sharpness and I have really good light where I can afford the slower speed. So if I were after a magazine cover, a double-page spread, I'd be shooting Kodachrome. If I needed extra color saturation, then I would get more color saturation out of the Ektachrome 100 Plus with just a slight loss in sharpness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, now to Norman Yamahiro, Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland. Norman, you're with us.
Yes. My main question was whether or not Ektachrome 100 was giving you much of a hue shift versus Kodachrome.
Hue shift?
A hue shift. Do you want to clarify that, Norman?
Yeah, you know, with the actual color saturation, I was wondering how much of an actual color imbalance you were noticing it over the Kodachrome.
You look like you both might want to say something about
Sure,
that,
do
but
you
you're
wanna
not
go
sure.
The Ektachrome 100 Plus film is neutral, you know, as far as we know. Of course, there can be some color shifts with different processes, storage conditions, but basically we feel that we're making the film to a neutral spec. The Kodachrome films are pretty good. They do shift somewhat with age, but we feel that there's no advantage in color balance of one over the other.
You want to add something to that, Galen? Yeah.
Well, my experience with the Ektachrome 100 Plus has been that it's exceptionally neutral that the whites are exceptionally clean and the flesh tones are excellent. So, of course, I haven't kept the film for a year and shot it when it's old, and I've been very lucky to have exceedingly good processing, but I've never had better or more consistent results with a transparency film.
Thanks for calling, Norman. Let's go now back to Atlanta and say hello to Jeff Dinkert at the Kodak Marketing Center there. Jeff, thanks for calling. You're with us.
Yes, I was wondering about when we normally shoot our chromes, we're having to underexpose by quarter stop, half stop. I was wondering if that's still going to be necessary with the new film.
Well, there are a couple of different reasons for underexposing, and you get more apparent saturation on Kodachrome when you underexpose, and your picture subjectively looks like it has brighter colors. But some of that is already done for you with the extra saturation that's in the Ektachrome 100 Plus. So I find that I still underexpose a little bit, but not as much as for Kodachrome. If you were going to go 2/3 of a stop under to get that extra punch with Kodachrome, you'd probably have to go only 1/3 with the Ektachrome 100 Plus. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, to Pittsburgh now. Jack Engel at Mercy Hospital. Jack, you're on the air.
Thank you. Yeah, the question is how it holds up reciprocity-wise under long exposures, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or maybe even perhaps a minute.
Oh, we get many questions about that. Several people want those kinds of exposure times. These films, again, are not designed to be used at those exposure times. You're going to get into a cross-curve situation, a situation you can't filter for. Of course, you can always run your own kind of testing, and you may get okay results. Filtering with one kind of filtration, filtering out one part of the curve of the product. But this film is no different than other films. You can use it up to 1/10 of a second with no filtration, then you're going to have to add some, and after a second, you're basically on your own.
Well, I'd like to add that none of the transparency films that Kodak has are recommended for long exposures, but I always do whatever they tell me not to do with a film, just to see what it does. And I love night photographs on Kodachrome 25, and I've always loved them. And I thought, why use a fast film at night? Because what Kodachrome 25 does, and all the shifts that happen at 1 minute or 15 minutes, I like. And basically, the Ektachrome 100 Plus gives very subjectively pleasing night photographs. That doesn't mean that if you were to try to make it work for a 2-minute exposure in the studio that you'd have good flesh tones. But if you're doing a landscape and you want to have stars that look quite sharp in the sky with distinct colors against a blue sky with a dark, vivid blue night sky, then the Ektachrome 100 Plus will give that to you in a long exposure. So subjectively, I like what I've gotten.
Very good. That's what I was wondering about. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Jack. I want to let our viewers know that we have just opened up a few more phone lines, so if you've been waiting to place your call, now would be a good time to call in. Our operators are ready to take your calls for Galen and Karen. Let's go to Pat Calhoun at RIT here in home base, Rochester. Pat, you're on the air.
All right, I have a question for Galen. Does he use a polarizer with the 100 Plus, and does it get too saturated? And what kind of filters does he use? And does he use like warming filters, etc.?
Quite a few questions there. The question on the polarizer is a really good one. I use a polarizer a lot less on the Ektachrome 100 Plus than on the Kodachrome films because the skies tend to go too dark in landscapes when you have bright subject matter in the foreground and you use a polarizer. And the extra saturation is already there. But where I don't have skies and I have strong colors and I really want to accent them, now polarizer does wonders with the Ektachrome 100 Plus, but I have to be much more careful about its use than I do with Kodachrome. And what was your second question?
What filters do you use, like warming filters?
I generally don't use any warming filters that change the tone any more than an 81A. And basically I use 3 filters for my photography, And my guidelines are that I don't want to filter away from what my eye perceives in a subject. I want to bring things more in line with what my eye sees. So I use a polarizer that can pull colors and tones out, that singles them out the way my vision does. I use an 81A to cut the blueness in shadows when I have to shoot in shadows and shoot portraits and bring flesh tones up. And I use a gradated neutral density filter to increase the tonal range where I can split it across a horizon by 2 stops, which brings it more in line with my vision, which sees a much greater tonal range in the film. But I think it's a real good point that you bring up. I really disagree with the use of excessive gels or warming filters for editorial work and for landscape work. I think that the value of photography and its importance is all in the credibility that our audience places in photographs. And we could destroy that in a few years if we allow photography and editorial photography to put things into photographs that weren't really there. And now that we have those electronic capabilities, it's up to us, the photographers, to draw the line. And I think we have to draw the line back a little ways from where it was a few years ago. We have to retrench and be very solid about our ethics. And it's something I feel very strongly about. Thank you for asking the question.
Thanks for calling, Pat. Okay, on to Pennsylvania and Sergio Ramirez from the Antonelli Institute of Photography. Welcome, Sergio. You're on the air with us.
Yeah, hi there. My question is, I want to know if Kodak is coming up with a Ektachrome 400 plus and 1000 plus to the market.
All right.
Oh yes, we're always trying to constantly improve our products, and we do get questions frequently. I'd like to divert to Bob Shanebrook, who is the marketing manager for Color Reversal Products.
Hello, Sergio. Relative to your question about whether we'll be coming up with a 400 plus film, what we're doing at this point is we're looking at Ektachrome 100 plus Professional and assessing the impact that is going to have on the market. What we basically do is go to photographers and ask them what sort of products you're interested in. I hear your request for a 400 speed film, and we'll certainly look in that direction. And also I'd encourage other people, if they have comments they would like to comments they have on product needs, we're always interested in understanding what customer needs are so we can address them. Certainly TMAX 3200 was done for that reason, and the Ektachrome 100 plus film is simply to meet needs that photographers told us they had. So thanks for your question.
Thanks for calling. Let's go now to Parsons, Kansas, and Gary Paulmiller. Gary, you're with Sun Graphics, and you're on the air with us.
Good morning. I had a question regarding studio use of the film. The Ektachrome 100 responded well to use of the photographing of fabrics. How does the Ektachrome 100 Plus respond to the fabric?
Okay, basically we have 2 films again. The Ektachrome 100, where there's a strong need to get the correct color reproduction, to get rid of anomalous reflectance, so you get the correct colors for the fabrics. Ektachrome 100 Plus is not the same kind of film. It is not made for anomalous reflectance situations. It's there to give you that extra color saturation that you may need for certain kinds of photographs. I hope that answers your question.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling, Gary. Let's say hello now to Vince Kuzniewski at Mercy Hospital in Pittsburgh. Vince, you're on the air with us.
Hello. In the medical field, we're using EPR64 currently. I was wondering, how does the Ektachrome 100 Plus differ or is very similar to the EPR64?
Okay. Basically, you have a little more color saturation going for you in the Ektachrome 100 Plus. Also, you have a speed advantage in the Ektachrome 100 Plus over the 64, which for some people is advantageous. Basically, the films are similar, but we feel that there are enough advantages for you to try this new film. You may like it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling, Vince. Let's go to Keith Barker at Asbury College in Wilmore, Kentucky. Keith, you're on the air with us.
Yes, I just had a question for Galen. I was just wondering what were your favorite focal lengths and lenses that you used in some of your wilderness shots and stuff. And I just wondered what were some of the precautions you took in keeping them clean and safe and stuff, and all the different things that you do.
Well, the two focal lengths that I use the most are a 24 millimeter and an 85 millimeter. And if I have to carry just two lenses and I don't have a specialty need, then I take those. And from there, I can build into a kit that might have 15 lenses to take into the field on a major assignment. And then each day or each situation, I would choose from that basic kit. And if I were going out and I thought I might have rare wildlife that I couldn't approach closely, I might have my 400 millimeter lens or perhaps even a 600. And if I were going to go photograph interiors, I might have a 15 millimeter and a 20 millimeter. If I were going to photograph the outsides of buildings or perhaps a forest where I couldn't get opposite it, I'd use a perspective control 28 millimeter lens. So I use a fairly broad range, but I try not to carry too many lenses at any one time, and usually only to have one shoulder bag that I'm carrying anywhere when I'm actually making photographs. As far as taking care of lenses, I've done a lot of experiments and been very surprised that I visually can't tell the difference between my photographs when I have a fair amount of dust on the lens and when I don't. So I'm probably one of the photographers who doesn't spend a lot of time making sure that that last little bit of dirt is off, and I don't spend a lot of time rubbing my lenses, and therefore the lenses that I have, some of them are 10 years old, the surfaces are in reasonably good shape. If I'm in the field and I have to wipe one off with my t-shirt, I do it regardless of what might happen. But basically, I don't have too many field problems with cleaning lenses other than just blowing them off with a little bit of compressed air or a blow brush, and then using the standard paper to clean them.
And the conditions you shoot in, I can't imagine any better advice for Keith. Thank you very much, Keith. We do have a couple of lines that have opened up since we've been on the air. If you've been waiting to place your call, now would be a good time. You can get right through to Karen Teitelbaum and Galen Rowell here in our studio. We're going now back to Kansas and John Puffer from Emporia State University. John, you're on the air.
Hello again. Thank you. I wanted to ask Galen what printing method he uses to print his chromes, and along those same lines, which of these two films, or which of the Ektachrome 100 films would be better for printing on Cibachrome? Would one be better than the other? And does the woman from Kodak, Karen, does she recommend pull processing to lower the contrast so that they would print better? Those all sort of tie into printing, I guess.
Okay.
Well, let's see. The answer to the first question is that I usually make Type C prints, and I don't do them myself. I have one very good lab person who makes 4x5 inner negatives and does Type C prints. And then with a few images, I do dye transfers. I found that the Ektachrome 100 has high saturation and fairly high contrast, and if you were going to use that, as with Kodachrome, for Cibachrome prints, which increase the contrast, then you either have to put up with the changes that happen there, or you need to do masking or something else that takes a lot of extra work to lower the contrast range with Cibachrome. But in general, I prefer using the Type C paper because of the broad tonal range that you can get from it. If you do want to use, if you're going to choose one of those films to go on the contrasting medium of Cibachrome, I'd use the standard Ektachrome 100 instead of the Ektachrome 100 Plus.
And there were a few other questions in
Right.
there too, Karen, I know.
Now, pull process situations. You mentioned, could you clarify that question again for me, please?
Yeah, that's basically what I was asking. In some of the literature we're reading now about people who are using pull processing, lowering the first developer time processing Ektachrome down to as little as 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, to lower the contrast so that you get a more pleasing tonal range in the Cibachrome print. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that or anything on that.
Well, we of course know that people are doing this, but we would say that we would not recommend necessarily doing that based on our feelings about the film. I think it's all up to the user of the product. Basically, we think we produce the film to a good contrast. It may be necessary to modify that contrast slightly for different kinds of reproduction situations, but again, it's up to the user.
Well, I've never done exactly what you are proposing here, to pull process and then to print on Cibachrome, but I have experimented with pull processing on the Ektachrome 100 Plus, and it does extend the tonal range significantly, which usually doesn't help my outdoor landscapes. Usually I want the contrast and the saturation either the way the film is or with it push processed. But what happens when you pull process it is that you get a slight green shift. And if you are able to filter precisely for that, or to correct it in your Cibachrome printing, I think that that might be a really good experiment to try.
Well, thanks very much.
Hope we've given you some suggestions, John. Thanks for calling. Okay, we're going on to Virginia now. Say hello to John Lozitas from the Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach. John, you're with us.
Yes, hi. I do a lot of available light photography in a TV studio, shooting TV programs, and I was wondering about the availability of a higher speed Ektachrome tungsten film rather than 160.
Karen's smiling.
Well, right now I think we will direct that question to Bob Shainbrook. Right now I do get questions, many questions about higher speed film, and I know it's something that maybe we'd like to look into.
John, we're not doing anything right now as far as announcing a high-speed tungsten film. We have been quite successful with the 160, and under most television conditions, we found that to be satisfactory. I might ask you, what speed are you looking for? How much faster do you need?
Maybe 2 stops. The problem is, in order to get good close-ups of some of our guests, you need to use a longer lens, and it's hard to get in, close, because of the studio cameras. To get you close-up sometimes.
Okay, so you need something beyond 160. Well, I understand what your need is. We've been really good results with 160, but I understand what you have your need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, all the callers that have come in from around the country, and our thanks, of course, to Galen Rowell for your expertise and experience and beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
Wonderful having you here. Karen Teitelbaum from Kodak. Our pleasure. All of our viewers, too. We hope we've answered all the questions out there. If by chance we haven't, you can contact Eastman Kodak Company by writing to Eastman Kodak Professional Photography Division, and that's at 343 State Street in Rochester, New York, 14650, for those questions we didn't get to today. Or in the United States, you can call the Kodak Information Center, and that number is 1-800-242-2424. And for a free copy of Kodak Technical Publication F32 on TMAX films, or publication E113 on the Ektachrome 100 Plus film, please write to Eastman Kodak Company, again at 343 State Street. That's Department 412L TC in Rochester, New York, 14650. Remember, that address is for Kodak Technical Publication F32. We hope that you have enjoyed today's broadcast, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about our upcoming events this year. On Thursday, October 6th, we'll be bringing you live transmission from Rochester Institute of Technology of the William A. Reedy Memorial Lecture. And this year's speakers will be Rick Smullen and David Cohen of the Day in the Life series fame. And on Thursday, November 3rd, Techniques of the Masters will return with more masters and an on-location report from Photokina in Cologne, West Germany. We hope that these presentations sound exciting to you and that you'll be able to join us for those. We'll be mailing information about both of those shows to you later this summer, so watch your mailboxes. Since our last broadcast, many of you have called and written to us with comments and suggestions. We like that. We value your input, and we're trying to be responsive to your needs. So that we can continue to serve you, we ask that you please complete and return the response report, which was included with your promotional mailing. If you did not receive a report questionnaire, please mail us a letter indicating who you are, how many watch this telecast at your site, along with any comments or suggestions you'd like to make. Your replies should be mailed to the Eastman Kodak Company, Professional Photography Division, at 343 State Street here in Rochester, New York, 14650, and those should go to the attention of Ken Lassiter. You know, live call-in teleconferencing on this scale that you're watching today is unique. As the Techniques of the Masters program has grown, so has our audience. But our callers remind us that not everybody has access to a satellite receive site to watch from, and several larger locations have told us that they'd be very happy to have interested people who don't have reception capability join them at their sites. Lots of hospitality out there. To help sites and potential viewers find each other, we have a matchmaking service. Our Kodak Information Center will begin maintaining a list of sites wishing to accept more local viewers. If you have additional seating and would like to be a host facility, welcome aboard. And please call 1-800-44-KODAK, extension 910, to be listed in our service. When callers in your area inquire about potential viewing sites, the Kodak Information Center will match them up with you. And now, before we go, we'd like to thank Ray DeMoulin for his time in sharing the announcement, the exciting announcement of the TMAX P3200 with us. Thank you also to our photographic masters, Galen Rowell and Bill Pierce, for bringing their experiences and their knowledge to us today. And thank you, too, to our technical presenters, Karen Teitelbaum and Dr. Dick Dickerson, along with their technical and marketing support people who've been here to answer the questions that have come in today. And finally, of course, our appreciation to you, our audience, for joining us today, and to our listeners and viewers who have called in. We hope that today's program has been beneficial and exciting to you and given you some new ideas. You're ready to get out and start shooting. That's about it for today. Thank you all again, and please do join us at our next teleconference. Goodbye and good day.
This is KBTV, Kodak Business Television.